And to some people, they might think that's the record company would just go nuts. This is going to undercut album sales, blah, blah, blah.
They didn't love it. I mean, but it had been something we'd been doing for years, and it was when it got to a point where we got onto a major label, it just felt like I think it just didn't feel like a right thing to do.
To cut it out.
To cut it out to the fans, and also I think for years it had just been free advertising for the band. I mean, especially in your earlier stages.
And that's something that was an idea that we got from the Dead.
Yeah, definitely.
We're probably the first people the first large rock band to do that, and you know, it was. I don't think that it really cuts into album sales. You know, our album sales aren't necessarily that great, but I think it's
because
I don't think it. I think it's because
they're not shoddy either.
But I think that if you make a great album, I mean, it kind of goes back to your earlier question about the difference.
The album is a different entity.
And as soon as the more that we see that and embrace that concept, the less of an issue it will be to allow live taping.
They're just such different things.
We try to make every show different. The set list is usually different, and I don't know, other approaches to the songs are different from night to night, and so that's one reason why people like to get a bunch of tapes to collect them. And then the album just seems like another version of some of those songs, so they still would want the album a lot of times.
There was a long period when we first started as a band where we weren't interested in recording at all. And our career moved forward. We were touring the whole country before we ever signed with a record label. So those tapes were really instrumental in giving us an opportunity.
The tapes got out there before there was a record.
There's a great example of that. We did our first road trip was out to Colorado. We did 7 or 8 nights at this club called the Roma in Telluride. We drove 40 or 50 hours in a van and just played every night. And those shows were all taped, and there was, I think, probably between 8 and 15 people, the same 8 and 15 people that came every night. And
they were doing that drive too then.
Yeah, well, they were from locals. They kind of came down the first night, and we were doing, strange things on stage where we'd switch instruments and do little, one-act plays and stuff. Anyway, these shows all got taped, and then we left. A year or two later, we came back to Colorado, and we had an audience that, because of these tapes that had spread, that they were familiar with all our songs, not just the ones that were on the albums, and it enabled us to continue playing those kind of shows. You don't have to be selling an album. You're just playing whatever you want to play. So it's been a big help to us. I would recommend it.
Yeah, I would recommend it for any band starting out. It's like a...
Yeah, most bands would think it would be impossible. Would think, oh no, you have to have an album out and it has to be out and saturated in before you can actually go out and get dates out there.
Right.
To go the way we went, you have to play a lot of live shows.
A lot. I mean, it is. You really have to want to. I think you have to put in that 5 to 8 year period where you're consistently on the road and playing night after night after night. And also, it was a big help to us to only have 4 people in the band because, you have to split the money and everything. That's true.
Well,
I know people like Viper has, who are like, struggling with that. If you have 10 or 12 people in your band, where are you got to buy hotel rooms? And if we were in a Plymouth Voyager, Phish's Plymouth Voyager.
And we were young enough too, where we didn't mind sleeping on floors for the first 6 years. And
I still don't mind sleeping on floors.
That's good for the back. That's good for the back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I never got spoiled.
Speaking of stage stuff, what's with the trampolines?
Those are all those kinds of things were
our antics.
And the rubber chickens.
They're just like the dude has the rubber chicken. Yeah, they're just like these ideas or jokes that came up in band practice. Like, wouldn't it be funny if? And then a handful of those actually end up, someone would say, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we had, the trampolines, weren't we just driving by some lawn sale or something.
Yeah,
Oh,
something like that.
let's grab these trampolines. But, they're
Were they little
cheap.
mini ones?
they're little mini
They're mini
trams.
trams. We had slippy slides for a while too.
Yeah, you saw those on
Sliders, you
TV.
know.
They were like, that looks really cool.
Yeah. You know, and there's this, with this song, It's Ice, and, wouldn't it be funny if, and some of those, someone will actually end up going and buying the thing, the trampoline or the slick and slider, or you just see it at a lawn sale, or, somebody, they just get, get incorporated, and
I saw
some
it.
actually stick.
Did you ever see Devo?
Yeah.
They used to walk on the treadmills.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah, great idea.
It's all taken from Devo.
You exposed our one truth.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to ask about the Halloween concerts, of course.
Okay.
I think, I'll make a little summary. I think one of your Halloween concerts some years back, you decided to surprise the fans, and you did the Beatles' White Album, I think, top to bottom.
Yep.
And they apparently no one knew. Well, I'm sure some people knew, but most of the audience didn't know this was coming. They didn't.
No, we kept it pretty good.
Yeah.
Secret.
But of course, the next year they were expecting something like that. And I
Right.
think next year you did the Quadrophenia record,
Mm-hmm.
and then you did a record that I was involved with, which was kind of a surprise for me too. And well, it's kind of ambitious, and it's. What made you decide to do that?
We did a show in somewhere down south about a year before that first Halloween show, and because we have this habit of mixing up the set lists, we thought it would be kind of a shock to play our own album, which was Hoist, was the album, exactly as it. Normally we improvise and everything. So for one set, I thought it was the most shocking thing we could do. So we
Actually play the album in its entirety.
So we played the whole album top to bottom exactly as it lay on plastic. And afterwards, we were talking to some fans, and we were jokingly boasting, "Oh, we'll play any album ever recorded." And that gave us the idea that the next Halloween, well, let's do that as a musical costume. So we did the White Album.
And actually, what happened was we did put out the word that we wanted fans to vote on what album to do. And they didn't. It was a secret
That's
what
what it
album we
was.
ended up doing. But it was their vote from some letters so it was a challenge.
The first 2 years were votes. That was what it was. We said we'll do any album, and somebody I was talking to. The third year was our choice. That was Remain in
Kind of
Light.
flattering to me. Yeah.
Well, it was also the concept partly behind it too. Was we used to always, like on Halloween, people always give you these costumes to wear, and there was stuff that one
Right.
year had this giant foam thing you had to wear on his head, and it's like stuff you can only wear for about 30 seconds because it's too hot and stuff. And so it was there was an idea of this sort of our costume. Let's make our costume a musical one, rather than having to wear these things on stage that you can't really play in. And so we just kind of took on the musical costume idea, and that's why it became on Halloween was the time and to try to not actually do so much of your own thing with the album, but play it sort of true to the album, as if you were pretending to be
Right.
that other band for a second,
Right.
really putting on the costume.
Having to get inside another band's head like that, which
It's
amazing.
You don't know how it's going to affect you or how it's going
Yeah.
to what you're going to pull away from it. But each time we did this with the Beatles' White Album, obviously the beautiful songs that they wrote and so many of them, the melodies and the orchestration. We really tried to get the orchestration down between the four instruments as best we could. And the next year we did the Who album, and it was sort of playing we're in Rosemont Horizon in Chicago, which is a big arena, and sort of playing a Who album in an arena, it gives you a sense of, oh man, these guys really
they
had a
were
handle
writing
on
for this
arena rock.
venue.
Yeah, exactly. And then when we did Remain in Light, it may have had, in some ways, the biggest effect on us, because I think we really learned the grooves. We really tried to get inside the grooves that were on the album, and I know for me personally, I took so much away from that, and the sort of groove-oriented playing that we've done in the last few years. Repetition, pulling things out, putting it back, all that sort of thing. A lot of it was from learning that.
You had to at least bring in a percussion player for that
We
one.
did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was-
Brendan is,
Interesting. It got everyone in the band singing more.
Yeah,
as well
yeah,
because
yeah.
of the vocal layering.
Yeah,
Yep.
for me, I never had, as a drummer, just really never had much of a singing role. And after doing that album, I became eager actually to sing more and realized that it wasn't something that was impossible for me to do.